Today in the show, it's the final Lezhin Recap. It's episode 5, so make sure you stick around to the end of the video for the giveaway. As always, we're going to start off with Dark Haven. So our story picks up where we left off. We see the killer is actually torturing the person he kidnapped, who was the head bully, if you remember. And then we go straight to Connor and Mona and their secret plan on how they're going to break Connor into Simon's apartment. It's literally Mona is pretending to faint. And basically they're just going to wait for security to come out. And when security doesn't look like they're coming out, Mona's friend goes up to her to try and tell her, okay, the plan has failed. But then security comes out because he recognizes Mona's friend as a member of a different band he was a huge fan of. So Connor, seeing this opportunity, just runs inside. Meanwhile, the killer torturing the bully scene has evolved into a rape scene, and that was kind of weird to read. We also find out that the killer was actually hired by someone, but we don't know who just yet. And then the scene goes back to Connor. He's fallen asleep outside of Simon's place. Simon wasn't in when he got there, but then who should step out of the elevator but Simon, and he stops dead in his tracks upon seeing Connor. The two go inside, and the whole time they're together, both Connor and Simon are just like having mental flashbacks to a better time. And then we find out that the killer is actually Simon's brother and was hired by Simon to kill Pete. This is all for revenge for breaking Connor's hands. The two continue talking even more, and Simon just keeps thinking to himself that he doesn't want to get Connor involved in the whole killing Pete thing. Understandably. Simon says that he's happy that the two of them can be friends again, and then Connor begins to think about where they were together 5 years ago. So the memory starts off with their band playing together, and the performance goes really well. So well that the two of them go home and have sexy sex. Meanwhile, there was someone outside who had installed a radio in their apartment, and they just say to themselves, gay bastards. The next day we actually have a scene where Connor goes to go and get some hot dogs for himself and Simon. But then the hot dog seller is like super racist towards Connor, so naturally Connor retaliates and Simon has to get in between the two of them and ends up taking a punch because he didn't want the hot dog seller to press charges against Connor. Meanwhile, Mona is stuck at like some really boring family thing, and by the time she finally escapes, she's just like downing a bottle of beer or wine, we can't really tell what it is, and then these creepy guys come up to her and start talking about mugging her. She runs, finds a guy who would later become her boyfriend, but she doesn't know that at this point, and the two of them begin running together. Meanwhile, with Connor and Simon, the police have gotten involved, and they're completely ignoring Connor's side of the story because he's Asian. It's like complete racism. The police are basically like, you threatened this hot dog guy, so you have to apologize, and after that there'll be no charges pressed. So Connor apologizes begrudgingly, and the two boys just go home. Connor is super hurt that this racist shit is still happening to him to this day. And he still experiences trauma from when he was a teenager and he was kidnapped, so naturally this is going to play on his mind quite a bit. Meanwhile, somewhere else, we're not sure where, a man is watching a news report about a woman getting raped and it being videoed and leaked on the internet, so she killed herself, and his reaction is, bet it was hot, I have to look for that. But then from up behind him, someone comes and kills him and then just disappears. 2 years later, there was a feature done on the band on TV, and as the band begins to watch the feature, it becomes very apparent that it's not about Dark Haven, it's about Simon. Connor tries rationalizing it out, being like, well, you know, he's the lead singer, that's the one that always gets all the attention. But everyone in the band clearly aren't okay about this, including Simon. And then Mona would show up with who would later become Connor's beard. And Connor and his future girlfriend begin talking, and Simon takes an instant dislike to her. And that's where we're going to be stopping the Dark Haven recaps. And now on to All About Lust, and in true form we start off with sexy sex. Shortly following this, the exhibition day has come around, but Jiyeon can't focus because Soojin told him that he loves him during the sex. So Soojin does have to go up to Jiyeon and say, okay, I'm happy that you're happy, but you do need to focus on your schoolwork. Later that day, the two boys are around Soojin's house, and Soojin is like, okay, well, you told me you fell in love with my work before you had feelings for me, so how did you first come across my work? And Jiyeon is like, well, we were in the study room one day, and there was a bunch of older students' work just floating around in there, and I came across your work. Soojin's like, oh, which piece was it? And then we see this, and I was just like, okay, is this like gonna take a weird turn. So then we have a flashback to Jion's first week of college. Turns out people were gossiping about him, talking about him behind his back, saying that he didn't deserve to be there because he wasn't that good at art. Jungmin was pretty much his only friend, so they go to the study room together and there's a bunch of guys in there looking at older students' work. Jungmin joins in, but Jion actually steps out of the group because it had been some of the guys that had been gossiping about him before that were looking at these students' work. But then Jion comes across some drawings he really likes across the other side of the room, so he goes up to them and is like, hey, who drew this? Because I really like these. And these guys start bad-mouthing this work instantly. So then Jungmin goes and slides the edge of one of the drawings down a guy's forehead, causing him to get a really bad paper cut. She completely bitches him out, saying, if you think you're superior to this, if you think you're so good that you're in a position to critique this, why on earth are you in school to learn how to draw, to learn how to do art? And she also says if they have so much to say about Jion, they should be saying it to his face and not behind his back. Jion then goes off and says that he feels like he can relate to whoever did these drawings just by people's adverse reactions to the drawings, because people clearly feel about how they feel about those drawings, about how they've been treating him. So those drawings and him are one and the same. Jungmin and Jion found out Soojin was the one that did the art. At the time, Soojin was on military service, but then one day while Jion was on military service, he would actually be on leave and he would be back in town, and Jungmin's like, oh, Soojin's actually going to be in school today, there's going to be like a big gathering. So Jion just shows up at the college, and this is when Jungmin's like, you should be at home with your family, and Jion's just like, oh, well, you know, none of my family are there, so it's fine. So Jungmin drags him over to Soojin, and the two boys finally get to talk. And then after that, every time Jion was on military leave, he would go straight to the college to say hi to Soojin. The two boys did kind of hit it off. It was a little bit awkward, but they hit it off. So skipping forward to current times, Soojin was like, okay, so you were in love with my work first, but then you like fell in love with me after. And Jion's like, yeah, that's right. But then Soojin drops the bomb of, well, I had feelings for you the moment we clapped eyes on each other. Shortly following this, the two boys have like this super romantic conversation. It was so good. It was such a really nice scene. Like, I couldn't do it justice in this video. You need to go to Lezhin and just read all about lust, because this was so well written, this particular part. It was so romantic and so sweet. And then they fall asleep in each other's arms and wake up and have sexy sex. And then the day of the gallery comes. Jungmin tells the two boys that all three of them have won awards, and season 1 ends with the two boys in super lovey-dovey mode. They're both very happy, and it's just super sweet, and I love all about lust so much. And now on to Dolphin Ferry. So if you remember, Dolphin Ferry before ended with Mokwa on the phone with his old manager. He's still on the phone with his manager at this point. The manager's just like, you know what, just fax in your bank details and we can send your payment out to you. He gives Mokwa the fax number, and Mokwa couldn't memorize the fax number. So he goes to his old work building to see if he can like see the fax number through the window, and he can't see it, but then who should he run into but his old manager. He really doesn't like Mokwa, and he's just like, you know what, just wait outside. He goes inside, and then Mokwa feels a bit of paper hit his head, and it's the fax number. Mokwa then has the idea to take Changyong out on a free date to the park, because there's like some event going on there that his old company's manager is actually running himself. He manages to convince Changyong by pointing out that his old manager is actually from Seoul, which means there might be more people from Seoul at the event, so he might be able to track down his old dolphin trainer at this event in the park. We then go to a scene with Mokwa's old manager, and he has a picture on his desk of himself training Changyong as a dolphin. To cut long story short, Mokwa and Changyong go to the event, and Rino tags along, so the two boys don't get any alone time. Eventually, Changyong goes off on his own for a bit, and Rino and Mokwa actually get along a lot better than you would expect. And then when Changyong was on his way back, he runs into Mokwa's old manager, who is indeed his old trainer. And that's where we're going to end the Dolphin Ferry recaps. All three of these stories, if you compare the first episode of these recaps, they've all gone in completely different directions from what we were expecting. I think Dark Haven's the only one that's like consistently kept the same tone the whole way through, but the other two are just not what I was expecting at all, and I'm not angry about it at all. I'm really happy about it. I will say Dark Haven it's got this storyline that's got such a larger scale than I ever imagined it to have. And I like how it manages to change its setting from like present day to a few years ago really seamlessly. And then we have All About Lust, which I really feel like should be called All About a Confusing Love Story. It's so sweet and it's so happy, and it just makes me so happy to read it. Like, it's one of those things that I'm excited when I get to read All About Lust. And you know what? Sometimes you just need something that's not necessarily deep, it's not serious, it just makes you happy. Because Lord knows I've needed that this year. And then we have Dolphin Ferry, which did not turn out to be what I expected it to be. I'm not angry about it. I really enjoyed Dolphin Ferry. But for example, if the other two recaps are in lanes, this one's in a swimming pool on the side of the road. Like, it's doing its own thing. It's like not comparable to anything else. It's so unique and I really appreciate it for that. And I like how it goes at its own pace. It's not worried about what other books or comics are doing. So on to the giveaway. If you want to earn some coins to spend on Lezhin's website, what you have to do is follow Lezhin on Twitter, create an account on Lezhin's website, or if you already have one, that works just as well. Be subscribed to this channel, like this video, share this video, and leave a comment down below letting me know which one of these 3 stories were your favorite. For me personally, I have to say All About Lust is my favorite just because it makes me so happy, followed by Darkhaven, followed by Dolphin Ferry, but I do love all 3 equally. Finally, I do just want to say a huge thank you to Lezhin for sponsoring these recap videos. It's really meant a lot to me. I really enjoyed making these videos. Out of all the companies I've ever worked with, Lezhin has been the most understanding and the most patient with the creative process. They're super good to work with. I can't recommend them enough. So please, even if you're not interested in the giveaway, you just want something to do, go and make an account on Lezhin and check out their stuff, because I feel like they really do support artists and creators. It's super effective! Okay guys, that is it for today. So which one of the comics was your favorite? Please let me know in the comments down below. Also don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe to all of my social links, and I will see you next time.